Hi, I'm George Cox for Talk of the Town. Today, my in-studio guests are Eliot Burrell and Deborah Garfield from Eliot Community Human Services and Officer Jim Cogan from the Acton Police Department to talk about the Jail Diversion Program. Welcome to ActonTV.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So tell us how you're working with the Middlesex Police and the partnership got started to start the program.
Okay, I can address that. And the program began in the fall of 2015. The Eliot Community Health was approached by a chief in Bedford, Chief Bongiorno, who had an idea of expanding a program that was in place to include other towns that were serviced by the Concord District Court. And again, that was in the fall of 2015. Eliot was hired soon after that, and we kicked things off in January of 2016 in Acton.
This is a DMH-funded, Department of Mental Health funded program where there are other jail diversion programs within the state of Massachusetts. And so when we had the opportunity, Eliot had the opportunity to apply for funding from DMH, we really, as the officer said, we really wanted to expand the program, so that's how we got all the chiefs in the local areas that go through the Concord District Court to participate, which was really a unique experience because not many other jail diversion programs have so many other towns that are collaborating together. So this is really a unique experience that we have.
Now, people who are watching at home, they might not know what a jail diversion program is and the clients that you help. Leah, why don't you tell people what that's all about?
Yeah, so the main goal of it is to help support people dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues who have some kind of contact with law enforcement. So that could be a criminal issue, or it could just be somebody who is having a psychiatric emergency or who is overdosing, for instance. And so the goal is to get them services so that they're less likely to come into contact with law enforcement in the future. It's a pretty flexible program, so again, it's really anybody who's in need of services who comes into contact. So we're reaching out, we're following up with people, we're assessing needs, so what types of things would be helpful to them. And that can really be anything. So it could be connecting somebody to therapeutic services, it could be connecting somebody to substance use treatment, it could be helping support families who are dealing with a tough situation with a loved one. So again, it's pretty flexible, and everything is voluntary, so we're not forcing people to engage in support if they're not looking for it or if they're not ready for it. So we're always there if they decide later on that they want to come back and engage with the support that we can provide. And it's really a collaborative process with me and the officers. So I think it's a really unique opportunity for law enforcement and for kind of the mental health and substance use side of things to connect and to provide more comprehensive services to people.
So would you say it helps people to stay not getting incarcerated? Because there's many people who have been in jail who really didn't belong there because they have mental illness or drug problems. So it kind of helps them stay out.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody, for instance, is psychotic and is experiencing symptoms that that might be in other ways, and you can better speak to this, might be illegal or threatening. If officers and if clinicians working with officers can assess saying somebody is actually not stable and they actually need to be in a hospital versus in a jail cell, that's, I think, safer for everybody involved.
Yeah, prior to our involvement in this, we often had calls that we responded to, and we found people that were in need of assistance, something that we couldn't provide as police officers. And only in the most serious cases were we able to get someone to respond to their house or home and deal with them. In other cases, we'd leave the person hoping that, well, I guess we'd leave them in some cases. In other cases, we may arrest them in order to get them the help they needed. So this provides us with follow-up. Aaliyah gets our reports immediately after they're filed, and she's able to follow up with people or individuals who are in need of mental health services or services that are in need of abuse of certain substances.
Wonderful. And this covers not just Acton, but Maynard and other communities in the Middlesex community. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the towns that we cover are Acton, Maynard, Carlisle, Concord, Lincoln, Stowe, Bedford, and Hanscom Air Force Base.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if people maybe they have someone in their family or they know somebody that needs help and doesn't know about the program, what advice would you want to give them?
Yeah, so we would love everybody in these towns to know about the program and to know that the police are a resource if they or a loved one is dealing with challenges related to substance abuse or mental health crises. They can always reach out to me directly or to the police departments that we work with to either get information about the program or to tell us a little bit about what's going on in their home, to let us know that that police might have to respond, which is always helpful to know what police are going into before they go into a home. So they can, I don't know should I give a number?
Of course you could, yes, absolutely. And we'll put that information on the screen, so.
Yeah, so my number is 339-223-1730. So that's my direct, my work cell phone. It's the best way to get in touch with me. But if they want to contact the police department directly, they can do that.
Yeah, if there's a crisis, certainly we would recommend they call 911 to contact us, or our business lines to get in touch with us.
You know, if I could also add, one of the unique things about this partnership is that as a community mental health center, you know, we provide services to, you know, all sorts of folks in local communities. Actually, Acton is one of the towns that we serve several hundred people every year. And, you know, for us, what's unique about it is that if we are working with a client and they are struggling with a family member who has a mental illness and they're concerned about what to do. You know, one of the things that we've been able to do is to introduce them to Eliot, and she's gone out with the police so that they can kind of get to know who the resources are. So if they ever need to call the police for assistance, they're not afraid to do so. And they know what will happen, and they have faces to connect that to. And that's just such a valuable resource in terms of our being able to help our clients who want to know what to do when they're having a crisis.
And Eliot Community Human Services, actually, you have an office at the Human Services here in Acton. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, it's a great space. It's at the Human Services facility.
Yeah, where the new senior center is,
Yes.
So beautiful space.
Yeah, it's a wonderful space, and all of the service providers in Acton are there. So the COA, Veteran Services, nursing, Laura Ducharme, she provides social services to residents in town, are there. So it's a great central point for people to come and access services, myself included, and transportation as well. I'm probably leaving a couple people out. But yeah, it's
Veteran Services.
Yep, yeah. So people can come if they don't want to come to the police department and we want to meet in person. That's a great space. And it's also just wonderful having the amount of services that the town of Acton has to residents already. And so there are a number of people that that as a town, we collaborate on providing services for, which just increases the amount of support that we can give people. So for instance, Laura, again, who's the person who provides social services, you know, if she's working with somebody on housing, I can be working with somebody on getting them mental health support. So it's a kind of a wraparound services all in one place.
Now, what type of mental health support do you advise, or can you advise with some people? What exactly is some of the services would you recommend?
Yeah, I think it depends on somebody's needs. So it can be anything from a referral to therapy, and Eliot Community Human Services is right there, and the connection has been so helpful to just get somebody to see a therapist who's looking to talk to somebody. It could be looking for an inpatient placement, and depending on the need, short term or a long term. It could be an outpatient, a more intensive outpatient program, and we're talking substance use and mental health stuff or supports as well. So it could be detox, it could be sober living. It really runs the gamut. It can be support groups for both people as well as family members. So we're really looking to cater individual services to individual needs. So it's about talking to somebody and looking at what they're looking for and then connecting them to that.
What if somebody's apprehensive to get help because they don't have health insurance? I'm sure that's a challenge nowadays because, you know, you go into any treatment program or a detox, they're going to ask you, where's your insurance? Is there any challenges with that, or?
Yeah, I'd say the majority of people that I work with do have health insurance, which is really reassuring.
Wonderful.
In Massachusetts, if we're thinking about the entire country, it is pretty good for having people have health insurance, luckily. For those who don't, though, there are still options. We can work with somebody to get health insurance. There was actually a situation a couple weeks ago where somebody walked into the Acton Police Department looking for substance use treatment and didn't have insurance. And we were able to help him and place him into a treatment program that didn't require insurance. So there's definitely avenues to take if somebody doesn't have insurance. But we work with people.
Right, absolutely. And you know, one of the unique things about about Eliot is that we get some funding from some of the local communities and United Ways. So we get funding from the Acton Boxburg United Way. So if somebody was uninsured and wanted to see our prescriber and needed medication, we could see them for a reduced rate, or we could see them for free for a period of time, and while we help them then get health insurance. So there are some resources in the area that it's available to help folks.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know we're going to be talking a little while to Officer Michael Araklio about some of the outreach that you actually do here in the communities. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I told you, we have a response. Oftentimes, I would say on a daily basis, we're responding to some type of call that involves a mental health issue. In those cases, we forward those reports to Aaliyah, and there's a follow-up component where she'll contact the person, usually the next day, in order to find out what their needs are. And Mike, if there's a response or a needed response to go back to the residence or to meet with that person, Mike will meet with that person with Aaliyah, a co-response.
Excellent. And Michael is going to be coming up on the next segment of the show. I just want to have you give the website once again if people want more information.
Yes. So we actually have, I guess I'll talk a little bit about something that we haven't talked about before. So the Jail Diversion Program started providing services to people dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. And then the towns that were involved wanted to do more specifically for addressing the substance use component of that. And so they found the Central Middlesex Police Partnership, which is made up of all the towns that are in the Jail Diversion Program, and specifically is focused on intervention, prevention, and education around substance use. So we have a website for the Central Middlesex Police Partnership. It's www.cmpolicepartnership.com. So anyone can go on there and find out more about what we do, as well as the Jail Diversion Program, as well as get services related to substance use treatment and support.
So remember that information is on the screen. Jim, we'd like to thank you for being on this portion of the show. On the second half, we're going to bring up Officer Michael Araklio to tell you more about the Jail Diversion Program.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Welcome back to the second part of our show, talking about the Jail Diversion Program in the Middlesex West County. And we have Michael Araklio to talk about some of the outreach that you do in the community. Tell us about some of your experiences. This program, I didn't realize it's been 2 years since you've been working with the Acton Police Department. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure thing. We've had this wonderful opportunity to have this outreach. And as police officers, when we kind of went through the police academy, we started learning about it. Mental health wasn't the exact full focus. We weren't well versed in it, and a lot of our training was centered around domestic violence and ways to communicate with the community about that. But the mental health component of it was something new. And over the last couple of years, with the help of Eliot and Aaliyah, we've been able to get a better understanding on how this works within the community in ways that we can't just arrest our way out of this problem. And oftentimes that was the only resort that police may have had. So we would go to a situation, there would be some violence. Maybe that violence came from a point of mental illness, not necessarily just someone being violent. And we had our hands tied. We wanted to make the scene safe. We're here to make the community safe. And the only ways sometimes we could do that was to arrest. Now we've been going to so much training and so much outreach and so much partnership that we can sit there and take our time on scene and make better decisions, we think, for the whole entire community on ways to get this better. And part of that is getting people the therapy that they need.
Can you think of a case that you recently worked on together that you might have helped somebody who was mentally ill or on drugs here in Acton?
Yeah, I mean, we have a wonderful program here in town where we welcome anyone into our police station at any time. Whether they have drugs on them, or they just use drugs, or they really want to use drugs that same day. They can walk in our station any time, and we're not passing any judgments. We're there to give them assistance. We had someone walk in just over a week ago. No insurance, and this was mentioned, I think, earlier in the program. No insurance, didn't know where to go, looked up online, they Googled some research and some resources. We happened to be one of them that were in the catchment area where he lived. It wasn't even Acton, but it was a local resource. And we had called Aaliyah. At first, they contacted me. I try to be a point of contact for everybody in town. If they want to reach out, they can always call me direct, and I will do my best. One, we like to work together to provide the best service that we can. But this gentleman had walked in with his sister, and they said, we need some help. I was able to call Leah. Within 20 minutes, she had been there. During those 20 minutes, I sat there. I reassured them that we do everything we can. He was very nervous that he didn't have any insurance and that no one would accept him. And we were able to find someone, and he had placement within 24 hours. Other times, we have gone in recent, if anyone has an overdose, which we have had in town. Successfully, we haven't had anyone die this year from an overdose, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful, achievement that Acton has had, because we've seen it in Middlesex County. We're well over 200 fatalities as a direct result of opioid overdose, and Acton hasn't had one this year. A lot of that is from the 24-hour response that we have. So if someone overdoses in this town, Ali and I are going to go out to that home, even if they're not living in Acton, but it happened in Acton. If they live in Billerica and they were visiting a friend, we're willing to go out to Billerica to offer that service and say, listen, because we've learned, and through a lot of research that they've done, within the first 24 to 48 hours is when, after an overdose, is when they're willing to get help. And that's the time that we want to be knocking on doors and saying, we're here for you. It's a soft response. We go in there and we knock on the door, hey, this is what we're here to do. These are some things we can offer to you. It's totally up to you. Sometimes Aaliyah will call them first and say we're coming by, or sometimes if she's not in the area, I'll go by and speak as well. So I think that the co-response has been beautiful.
And what about if somebody does go through the program or get some help and they do go through a detox? What kind of follow-up would you have with some of the clients?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of treatment that they're getting. So if somebody is in long-term treatment, then they're getting support where they are. If they're coming back into the community, oftentimes police actually know that they've been back, and so we're making sure that they are keeping stable, that they're not overdosing again if possible. And if they are, we're continuing to provide services. But we want to connect people to resources. That's really a goal. So if they're coming back from detox, we want to make sure that they have something in place that provides stability once they're back in the community.
Because I think it's really important not to relapse, because many people who are addicted, they get clean, and in 3 months they have another overdose. So it's really important to follow up and make sure that they do stay clean.
They say the most dangerous time for someone that's addicted to drugs is the point when they get out of a treatment facility.
Right.
If they were thinking that they were going to go back and use that same weight, they were going to use that same size dose, after they've been clean and their body's been cleansed of it, then that most likely will cause an overdose. They don't have that tolerance any longer.
Right.
So oftentimes, we want to make sure that there's an aftercare, right? Police might respond to the call and treat that at that moment as a safety precaution for that person and everyone around them. Aaliyah will follow up and see if there's more treatment they need. If they go to a detox center, then Aaliyah and myself will find out when they do come home, and hopefully we can meet them there and say, listen, you're back into our community. We want to see you be successful, and here's some alternate things, like she had mentioned, different programs that are in the area to keep them back they have to be back engaged into the community. I think if they come back to isolation, there's a good chance that they'll start over and start using that drug again, and then we'll see the recidivism rate go up.
And especially in the last 10 years, the opioid epidemic is really just out of control as far as the number of deaths, the number of overdoses, and what do you do to kind of curtail that, to help people to make sure that they're not using anymore and they're not overdosing?
Yeah, I think it's a really big question that the whole country is trying to answer right now. On our end of things, I think the follow-up after an overdose is preventing, ideally, people from dying. It's the intervention piece of things, so we're not getting somebody when they're first trying. But we do want to get more involved in schools, and within our partnership, we partnered with a number of schools to provide prevention programming for both community members and parents, as well as for students around drug education. And Acton does a lot of work in the schools already to do that.
Wonderful.
Because ultimately, prevention is the best way we want to prevent people from getting involved. But we're trying to do our part on the intervention thing and prevent people from dying. That's really where we're.
And talking about preventing people from dying and overdosing, Acton and all the police departments, I believe, carry Narcan. Tell us, if people are not familiar with what that is.
Yeah, so Narcan is a nasal spray that we carry in all our police cruisers, correct? And we train on them several times a year. So what that does is, they can speak clinically about it, but technically, once the drug attaches itself to a receptor in the brain, it can prevent you from breathing properly. And what we do is we spray this into the nose on each side, one spray on each side, and what that does is it knocks off that receptor for a time being, so they can start regulating their breathing again.
Okay.
For us to get them to the ambulance in time. So every police cruiser has one. Every time we go to a call, if we suspect at all that there might be some opioid on board, in a sense, in that person's system, we're going to use it, because if they don't have it, if it was a different kind of overdose, or if it was an alcohol overdose, and we find them, unconscious, we can still use that, and there's no harmful effect as a result. So it's we have used it. We have deployed it several times in town. Obviously, we have wonderful results because no one has passed away this year, and we've deployed it several times this year. So I think that's been one of the biggest things that we can do to prevent. The big thing about, this mental illness and this substance use is that we're hoping that we can give them time. That's really what it's about. It's about keeping them alive as long as possible, because we're hoping that maybe they either phase out of this part of their life, because that's often what sometimes people that are using drugs will do. They'll kind of age themselves out. And we're seeing that the population right now is, in that middle age bracket, but we don't often see the elder population using it right now. So we're hoping, the longer we keep them alive, the more availability it is for treatment, post-prevention, and by using Narcan, it gives them another opportunity. So that's really, I think it's a wonderful thing that the Acton Police and the surrounding communities have done.
And there's so many people that hit rock bottom. There's only one way to go, and that's back up. Right. So,
I think one of the most powerful examples of this is that, if people don't notify somebody and someone doesn't get Narcan right away, it can have long-term effects. And so, we're working with somebody who was not given Narcan right away and survived, but is now permanently has brain damage and is rebuilding their life because they didn't get the intervention they needed as quickly as they needed it. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do in terms of the opioid crisis is talk about it, because it happens everywhere. It happens in the suburbs of Acton and in the surrounding communities, and it's not just sort of an inner city problem. Kids get opioids when they break their leg and they're in sports and they're given painkillers, and that's why now doctors all have to participate in the Massachusetts monitoring program, where they have to make sure that every patient that they're prescribing painkillers for, they have to look them up to make sure that not other doctors are prescribing. So things have been put into place in the state that have really tried to address this problem.
Now, do you also work with the Middlesex District Attorney's Office to help the opioid crisis and curtail it a bit?
So we definitely work alongside Mary and Ryan's initiatives. So yes, we are actually, you were just coming from a meeting today that she hosts every month. So we are on board with any initiative that she's doing, and I was in a meeting the other day with Chief Bongiorno from Bedford, where she was on speakerphone. We were talking about initiatives related to Narcan with the Bedford Police Department. So she's definitely a great partner and is, I think, really proactive around dealing with opioid and substance use issues, but opioid and specifically in Middlesex County.
And I think people just need to be educated about what is available, what is out there, some of the life-saving things that you do, like Narcan. People are not aware that fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than heroin, and if you mix the wrong dose, it can kill you. People need to be educated, and I think it's a wonderful thing that you're just helping the community and helping people get back on their feet. If people want more information, once again, please give the website.
Yes. Well, I would say actually, if they want more information, calling the police department. So again, my number is 339-223-1730, and the police number.
Yeah, my direct line, because I'm more than willing to take any calls or any questions or concern, would be 978-929-7543.
Yeah.
And I was looking on the Eliot Community Human Services website. You help many people with domestic violence, substance abuse. There's so many services. Why don't we give that website as well?
So Eliot Community Services, which is the parent organization of us, we have an outpatient clinic in Concord that services a local community, but our website is www.eliotchs.org. So it's ELIOTCHS.org.
Great. You're right. We'll have that information on the screen. And in closing, just if people are afraid to call you, what advice would you like to give them?
If they're afraid to call, that we're here to help, that we're non-judgmental, and we're looking to support them in whatever way they need to be supported. There's no right way, it's whatever way works best for them. So yeah, we're here.
Yeah. The police
we're here to help.
are a partnership in this, and we want to be an additional resource in someone's life. If you suspect that your children or someone in your family may be using drugs and you're afraid to make that call thinking, here we come with handcuffs, that's not what we're looking to do. If you call us and we come, we can confiscate those drugs. We're not looking to press charges. We're not looking to put people in jail. We're looking to get help. And we want this to be a safer environment for everyone, especially for the residents of Acton.
Well, we'd like to thank you for being on the show today and just giving this great information. And if people want more information, you can visit the websites and the phone numbers on the screen. I'm George Cox for Talk of the Town. We'll see you again next time.